Hello, friends. Good to see you again. Well, of course, I don't see you. Like my regeneration coffee mug. Today, I wanted to talk just briefly, not make it too long, about. And I usually don't talk about politics too much, but today I feel impelled to. As you saw on the thumbnail I have on this video, of the little girl, I can't remember her name, who the other day this video showed up, and apparently she was being at least bothered by some immigrant, some groomer in Scotland, in Dundee, and she whipped out a knife and a hatchet because the police don't take care of them. As we know, as you've been watching the news for the last while, it's kind of just nuts what's happening in the UK. You talk about anarchy in the UK, right? Right now. So that was, to me, I mean, whatever the real story is behind there, that image just immediately reminded me of the warrior queen Boudica from one of the Celtic tribes in England, who fought against the Romans. So it's because that's what happens if the men don't do anything, and I suppose that's what's the case in Scotland in particular. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've been watching from afar, and of course I was in fear it was going to be the case in this country, in the United States as well, that so many of the British Commonwealth countries, and of course also the UK proper, were so and continue to be so subservient to the dictates of the World Economic Forum in this. In the craziness, like the deprecation of the national character, and I can deprecate the English character and British Empire quite a bit, but the Scottish, no, the Irish, no, and not that they're part of the Commonwealth, but they're doing the same thing, Northern Ireland, the Welsh, where's your backbone, people? And I'm sure it's there, and it's actually nice to see with this. Raise the flag movement where, enough is enough. And I would not be surprised if we saw civil war or something really close to it in the UK coming up very soon. And it's kind of mind-blowing that Keir Starmer, what a worthless piece of flesh that guy is, who will post every day, we've really, if you come here illegally, you will be prosecuted. And he says that on one side of his mouth. The other side, he puts illegal immigrants up in 5-star hotels, and the British government foots the bill. It's nuts. It's insane. But anyway, so that little girl inspired me with that image because I would like to see people stand up. And now it's not the entire country that could stand up, because as we know, there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, I don't get it, prefer a world run. Even though they might not even know it, they seem almost categorically stupid to me. That they would prefer a world run by the World Economic Forum, and with open borders, and with you'll own nothing and be happy kinds of things, right? And it's bullshit. I mean, I was teaching about this 6-7 years ago, and in fact, I used to use Ida Auken's article that was on the World Economic Forum website. It's 2030, and I own nothing, and I've never been happier, or something like that, which was the advanced propaganda for you'll own nothing and be happy. Let's drop the guitar. I'm not going to play a whole song. Don't worry. But so what happened? So I got in. I was so inspired by the image of that girl in that video of her, a warrior goddess, that I spent most of yesterday. I was working here at my office, but I was listening to mostly Dougie MacLean, the Scottish folk singer, but in particular to his renditions of rebel songs, or songs written by Robert Burns, the great Jacobite poet, right? Like the one I was playing yesterday quite a bit was it was a rightful king. And I won't do the whole thing, but it's about it's the Jacobite loss, right? It's when the king fled to France, and the Jacobite cause was lost, which is, it's so many of the Scottish laments or ballads are about battles we lost, but one of them they didn't lose. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because I do a horrible job of Scots dialect, but it's got two titles. Their actual title is Robert Bruce's Address to His Troops at Bannockburn, but it's also known as Scots Wha Hae Ye. So Scots Wha Hae with Wallace bled, Scots whom Bruce has often led, welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. And if you know the movie Braveheart, this is the battle at the very end after William Wallace has been killed. And Robert the Bruce says, "You've bled with Wallace, now bleed with me." And they win for a change. And of course, when Robert Burns wrote this poem and published it, and he usually would publish his Jacobite poems anonymously for obvious reasons. It was again a call for Scottish independence, and I like the Scottish independence movement. I think it's probably not feasible. Of course, the Scottish government for the last 5, 6, 10 years has been insane, if you ask me. And I feel sorry because I've mentioned before, I think when I recorded my version of the Scots lament, "The Flowers of the Forest," another great song about when we lost a battle. Guys, got to think of some better tunes. That I mentioned then is that my best friend growing up was from Scotland. In fact, we formed a band when we were about 22 called Rob Roy. You can't get much more Scottish than that. And we even had, as you see in the thumbnail, the Lion Rampant. We had the big rebel flag, Scottish rebel flag, as our backdrop, and said Rob Roy on either side of the lion. And we were taking it seriously. And so my friend growing up, right, and his family, which was a lot like the family in the movie So I Married an Ex-Murderer, if you've ever seen that. "Hid, punts, now!" That was his dad. And I would walk into the house, and his dad would say, "Oh, here comes the village idiot." I love those people. I loved them. So it was shocking to me to see this fiercely independent Scottish folk soul, just like the Irish, right? These people who were oppressed by the British or the English for centuries, to fall over and play dead when it comes to the case of all the COVID stuff and the World Economic Forum's dictates, and especially Ireland disappointed me, because they're talking about white privilege in Ireland, or this is a country that has been under subjugation for most of its history, or at least certainly most of its modern history, since at least the time of Henry, even before, but certainly since the time of Henry VIII. It's been, guns blazing from the English side to subjugate the Irish. In fact, don't even get me going about the potato famine, which was not. There was no, maybe it was maybe it was a bad crop for potatoes. What about everything else? Oh, it was shipped overseas to the English. and they let the Irish starve, and many people died with their mouths stained green from trying to eat grass. So don't even get me going. But that, that I think, to see what's happening in parts of the British Isles right now is a little bit encouraging. I don't know what's going to happen. We have to write another lament about another great battle for a noble cause that we lost, but I hope not. But certainly Robert Burns was a Jacobite and a rebel at heart, and most of the Scottish people I've known were as well. Of course, my friends are from way up in the north in Scotland by the North Sea, so they're a little bit more feral than the people down in Edinburgh. And so, as we know, right, William Wallace. So we talked about Louis Braveheart. Now, it was interesting to me right at the beginning of COVID. Now, there were a lot of us, including me, right? I was very vocal about it, and I lost a lot of friends. But you know what? If your ideas, your thoughts don't lose your friends, treasure, or position once in a while, you probably have some broke ass ideas. Weak. And so what happened over the COVID thing, right, is there was a guy. I don't know why at first the Catholic left thought, when I published my book on sociology, that they thought, oh, he's one of us. I'm not one of you. I mean, I'm certainly not one of the Catholic right either, but I'm not one of the left by a long shot, because they're all kind of sissies. And there was one particular sissy named Sam Rocha. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's kind of an asshole. And he wrote this thing about Braveheart freedom, talking about people like me and others who didn't want to do the lockdowns. I was like, I don't know about you, but I was like, people say, when did you stop believing in that? I said, on day 15 of 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? And I knew this is all bad news, and the lockdowns, and you can only have 5 people at Thanksgiving, and all this business was bad. And it was coming from the World Economic Forum. So you could tell it because all the Western nations were adopting the same propaganda slogans like "Build Back Better" or "The New Normal," and that's bullshit. And so I was one of the people fighting against that vociferously. I was kicked out of every hardware store within a 20-mile radius for not wearing a mask and talking smack back to the guys who were trying to make me wear one. We went through that. But I think in the United States anyway, after the election of Donald Trump, that's not really even an issue in this country. The stuff that England and Canada, Australia, although they're still going through the COVID craziness, we're not in this country. But I imagine had Kamala Harris been elected, it would be worse. It would be insane. So, love or hate Trump, you can't argue with those, that observation. It would have been worse, right? So we're almost back to we are back to normal freedom and probably heading for more freedom. So if to call for freedom or national sovereignty is a sin, then I'm the greatest sinner in the world. And so that Sam Rocha guy, he was talking all kinds of smack about people who wanted freedom, and he was like, we just have to really cooperate with the government. And he wants to be Catholic, good for him. And the Pope at the time, Pope Francis, was also awful on this topic, where he was saying that getting the vaccine was an act of love, and he required it of all Vatican employees. I haven't seen any apologies forthcoming. Have you? From people getting sick from the vaccine, or as my wife happened, I mentioned this before, she was damaged from it by shedding. So anyway, so I'm kind of in full Jacobite mode right now. And now I hope I mean, I hope this is an awakening. I think we're at the last hour, though, of we're because the bad guys are still trying to get freedom and or take our freedom from us and promise us that we'll own nothing and be happy. I won't be happy. I won't be happy. I might not be here either. You know, I'm getting older, people. But anyway, I hope we're at the dawn of a new time. And I mentioned this astrologically. We are at the dawn of a new time. I just want to see how it shakes out. And I think astrologically it won't start to really straighten out to the beginning of next year because a few planets are going retrograde into the former signs of where the bad guys ruled. But we'll see what happens. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you disagree with me, that's your business, right? They don't care. Anyway, Scots who hae with Wallace bled. Scots whom Bruce hast often led. Welcome to your gory bed or to victory. And I'll read the last two stanzas. They're so good. By oppression's woes and pains, by your sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but they shall be free. Lay the proud usurpers low, tyrants fall in every foe, liberties in every blow. Let us do or die. I think the UK, anyway, is at just about at that point. All right? Take care.